Good evening, y'all. My name is Genesis Ortiz. I will be talking a little bit about myself and about my podcast, No Sidelines, and why I'm so passionate and motivated in the sports industry and young kids being involved. But let's just talk a little bit about myself first. I was born in Houston, Texas, raised in Miami, Florida. I am Hispanic, therefore both my parents are from Honduras, and I'm so grateful for them and the kind of individual, the type of person that I have grown up to be is because of them. Um, Growing up, I've always wanted to play sports. I've always wanted to be passionate in a sport, to know what it feels like to play that sport and to give it all on a field, or have a group of supporters to support me in what I do and love. But unfortunately, I was not able to have that, and there's no complaint about that. Everything happens for a reason, and I am now here making this podcast because I'm so passionate about it. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to play any sports because my family did not have the financial needs to put me and my siblings in any kind of sports clubs, whether it was outside or inside the school programs. If in financial need was the financial stability was always a big thing for us growing up, and therefore I know that a lot of families are going through that, where their kids are so passionate about sports, but cannot put their kids in these sports, because of those reasons and those struggles that they are facing. And so I want my podcast to be able to motivate those families and kids that don't give up. Like, anything is possible. There's so many things out there that can be available to those families to make their kids' dreams happen. Um, so I am a big sports fan. I grew up, watching sports with my father. Um, we watched every kind of sports. You can name them all: basketball, soccer, baseball. I am wearing the Astros. So one of my favorite teams for sure, since I am from both Florida and from Houston, I do rep a lot of different teams. So I do go for the Miami Heat basketball team. I do go for the Dallas Cowboys that everyone seems to hate, and the Houston Astros. I learned sports so much just by watching it, because that's something that I wanted, and if I wasn't able to have it physically and be able to do it, I studied it like a hobby. Um, so my podcast that I created is called No Sidelines, meaning we don't leave any kid outside, or we don't leave any kids on the sidelines, on the bench sitting. Like, we are gonna try to make these kids' dream happen. Whatever that I can provide or try to give advice or motivate families to do, I will try my best to do that during these podcasts. And that is including guest speakers that will come and talk about their stories and testimonies, about what it was like for them growing in the sports industry, or what it means to them. I just want to be able to motivate families that their kids can become big one day, but you will not know it if you don't give them that opportunity to make it happen. And I've heard and many stories that besides financial needs, kids don't want to be involved in these sports because of other reasons, and it's because they have parents that are very passionate about these sports and are so hard on the kids, and they're scared to hate the sports that they love because their parents are so strict about it. There's other times where it's been that they can't make these teams because they need to support their families, or because they have other priorities to bring money into the household. There's so many stories, right? And I just want this to be able to inspire others, that there's so many kids that are passionate about these dreams, and we do not know it. As much as they beg for it, we don't make it happen. We tend to not pay attention to it, and as they grow up, they tend to they tend to talk about it, of how they wish they did what they wanted to do. Therefore, one of my biggest advice I just want to give is that we should always open doors for these young youths to play sports. You know, they shouldn't be on the sideline. They shouldn't be on the bench. They should be out there playing. That is their dream. That is what is going to make them them. They're going to grow up and build their sorry. They are going to build their relationships with others during this sports industry, you know, during the sports area or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I just really hope that you guys enjoy this podcast. I am kind of all over the place with thoughts and ideas, but I promise I will be a lot better on my next episode. And I just cannot wait for you guys to hear more about the stories and testimonies that I will bringing in from special guests, or even, you know, from my own families that also feel the same way. But we don't leave any kid on the sideline, and let's make their dream happen and make them dream big, always and forever. Go sports. Welcome to The Sidelines. I am your host, Genesis Ortiz, and today I have a special guest with us who will be joining us in this podcast to talk more about sports and young kids wanting to achieve their big dreams. So please, Jer, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. So my name is Jared Anteria. Born and raised in Texas my whole life. I've lived in Houston, Austin, San Antonio. A little bit about me, I mean, grew up in a family of four that was always outdoors, always focused on doing stuff year round. You know, played some sports myself, as you can tell, not professional, just in some pastime, but overall, absolutely love sports, everything that it has to do with individuals, with life, how it makes you feel. But yeah, I mean, gosh, that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit about your sports background, if you played anything in, you know, elementary, middle, high school, college, or just outside of school in general.
Yeah, great question. I mean, growing up, I did not play a crazy amount of sports. I think my brother and I did flag football, and that's really just because my mom was scared for us to get hurt, so we didn't do any like small league football. We see like the little kids running around hitting each other and stuff. We just did, you know, the two-hand touch, flag football type of leagues. But overall, it was really fun. I mean, even whenever I went into junior high, that's whenever I did get into some tackle football. High school, tried out for the basketball team, never made it, but really in high school, I was more of a band student. So, you know, I absolutely love sports either way. I mean, I give it my best shot, but it 150% has a chokehold on my life now. Like football season, every Sunday we're watching football. We watch basketball throughout the season. Love to watch soccer. World Cup's coming up next year. So really just my experience with sports has been so impactful, and I'd say, like, honestly, that's one of my passions today. Although I don't work at sports, it definitely morphed me into someone who believes in what it is and the impact that it can have on people. So that's been my experience with sports.
Nice. Do you have a favorite team, a favorite sport, a favorite athlete that you know,
follow? Yeah.
Yes.
Gosh, so favorite team 100% is the Houston Texans. Grew up in Houston. You know, it's one of those things, even as a kid, you know, walk in on a Sunday, oh man, I got, you know, school tomorrow, and it was nothing like, I think it was like NFL on CBS or something.
What's the theme song?
It's like da-da-da, da-da-da. Yeah, that one. Then I'd hear it, and like I'd walk in from my bedroom, and my dad would have it on the TV, and I'm like, oh crap, I got to go to school, I got homework, da-da-da. But that was just like, that's how I knew it was Sunday. And it's not like I couldn't tell the days of the week, but it's just like, hey, you got school tomorrow, when you hear that tone. And so even to this day, like, I love football Sunday. The Houston Texans is just our team, and there's no other team in the world that could get me happy, mad, sad, glad, you know, then the Houston Texans, and that team has a hold of my life. So yeah, absolutely love them. Players, I mean, there's so many to count. Really, I can't name a specific player, but yeah.
So for me, I grew up. I grew up in Florida, Miami, Florida, and was born in Houston and moved to Houston a couple years ago. So I'm from cities that have these big teams. For example, like Houston, the Houston Rockets, basketball, or the Texans, like you said, or we have the Astro, the baseball team. You know, these are big known teams. As Florida, they have the Miami Heat, all these different kind of sports genres, right? And then San Antonio is not really known for that besides their San Antonio Spurs basketball team. But you have so many cities around San Antonio, like Dallas Cowboys, you know, the Rangers. Like, how do you feel about that, especially, you know, of how passionate you are about sports? Like, why, you know?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a huge sports fan, and I think for me, sports, any type of sport, whatever it is, and this kind of bleeds into what a bit of who I am now. Like, it could be football, basketball, soccer, volleyball, you name it, and we go out and play it. And so every sport team out there attracts my attention. Every sport attracts my attention. So living in San Antonio now, like, I went through high school out here, and football 100% was the main sport. I love, you know, all those teams you mentioned because I'm from Houston as well. But I really do wish that San Antonio had more sports teams out here. And it's just like, it's a shame that we don't. And I get it, the market isn't as big here as people would say because, you know, so much of San Antonio is ruled by the Cowboys, and like, we do have a basketball team, but I think the city is so full of culture, so full of passion.
And the city's just growing a lot more.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
You know, there's so much love for teams out here that we could give if we did have a football team, if we had a soccer team again, which was taken away, or a hockey team that was taken away. You know, there's so much to give out here, and I really wish that we could have that opportunity. So hopefully one day they'll bring those guys back. You know, we have arena football teams, but I get it from a business perspective. Those cities like Austin and Houston and Dallas have it, but you know, there's something to be said about little old San Antonio out here with some sports teams. So
yeah, let's hope if one day they do create these teams, they're as good as the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, no shot. No shot. I want to hear Dallas Cowboys. I know you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, so breaks my heart, but you know, maybe you come over to the dark side, or the good side, if you will, the Texans one day. But yeah.
For sure. Rooting for your team.
Thank you.
But let's talk more about the message of my podcast, which is called No Sidelines. No Sidelines means, you know, a lot of young kids grow up in these households that are not able to give them that open door for them to play sports because of financial needs, or just, you know, other challenges or struggles that, you know, these families face. So what do you think or feel about that these young kids are not given opportunities to play a sport, not even if it's because they're talented, just in general, just because maybe that's a hobby that they want to try and see if they're passionate about it? Like, what do you think about, or what do you feel about these challenges that, you know, these young kids face?
Yeah, it's hard, right? Like, I'm trying to think of a word to describe how I feel about it. It's almost as if I feel like we're letting the kids down and we're falling short, right? Like sports themselves, just in general sports gives a lot of individuals the opportunities to learn so many life lessons throughout its process, right? Like, whether it's mentorship in a coach, challenging yourself to make a team, you know, challenging yourself to be better than who you were yesterday, success, failure, relationship, communication, like all these different life skills that we have today in our different jobs can be learned, and it really is taught in sports. And I think having the ability to go into sports, if that's something that you want to do, shouldn't be limited by financials, shouldn't be limited by, you know, your family. And I get it, like, hey kids, you're like 6-7 years old, maybe you shouldn't make that call if your parents don't want you to go do tackle football like mine didn't want me to do. But I'm so thankful that they let me be exposed to the world of sports later on, because it's truly a passion of mine today. So, you know, I hope it's one of those things that as we continue to move forward years down the line, that kids absolutely have more access to, and they can get involved in sports and their parents can back them, and even if not, like, go watch sports, be a part of a team, educate yourself on it. Like, there's so many good things to come out of it, more so than bad, and I encourage everyone to give it a shot.
For sure, I agree. I think that every parent should be open to give their kid that opportunity to play the sports that they want to. Like I've said, like, even if they're not going to be professionals, but it's just something that they can try out and maybe see if that's something that they're passionate or open to.
Right.
And so, there are also families that have, pay these clubs or schools to have their kids be part in the sports, but there are coaches and leaders that keep them on the bench line or on the bench side, or however you call it.
Sideline, yeah.
Sideline, there you go. And so parents think that, oh, that's a waste of money because my kid is not playing. Like, why am I going to be paying for this program if my kid can't play? So what do you think, or what would you encourage these coaches or leaders or parents to do in those situations like that?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because I feel like, as someone who, let's say you're a parent out there and, like, hey, money's tight. And so for me to pay money for my kid not to be involved, to not, be the starter or stuff is difficult. But, on the contrary, I'd say, like, you're taking away that chance for that kid to be challenged, and ultimately for that kid to find themselves like, hey, is this something that I want to do? Or is this something that I want to go to fight for? Ultimately, they don't have that shot. So it's like, from my perspective at least, like, who am I to say that my kid doesn't have it in him to go be the best that he can be, to win that job, to win that starting position, to, grow in communication, to be a leader, to be a captain of the team. Like, that's not for me to find out. It's for me to encourage my child, and it's for me to support them as much as I can. And if it costs me money, if I have the means, I'm going to let them go out there and, figure it out. But I think by taking away the opportunity for my child to have that exposure, ultimately doesn't give him a shot to fail. And I think us failing is super critical. You can ask so many different people out there that, the biggest gains that they've experienced was because they have failed before. So maybe they don't make the team. Maybe they're not the starter. Maybe they're like the second or third string. Let them have that chip on their shoulder. Let them go to be the best that they can be. I'll give you a good example. And, like, some people, yeah, I'm goofy, I'm a nerd, but, like, I did band in high school. And for me, it felt like a sport. We were in drumline. And so hauling 60, 70-pound drums in the summer heat on concrete, like, it's, your heart rate's pumping, you're going, you're doing set after set of this performance that you've trained for months. And so my freshman year, came in, I wanted to play the quads or the tenors, ultimately didn't get the opportunity, and I was stuck at, like, entry level, hey man, you're going to be doing the crash cymbals in the pit, which was, like, not even on the field. By my second year, same thing. I was given the bottom of the line bass drum, and, like, the biggest bass drum that you could carry. But I worked myself up from being in the pit off the field to the last in the drum line, the core, the bottom bass drum, to my junior year playing tenors, finally the position I wanted, and then my senior year being the captain of the percussion unit. So, like, if my parents said, hey, why would I pay all this money for Jared to be playing marimba down in the pit, not even on the field, I would have never had that opportunity to grow and succeed as an individual in band. So, I encourage a lot of the parents out there to give their kids a shot and just see what they're made of.
For sure, yeah. And I think this leads to, well, I should have actually asked this before, but, a lot of people outside of the sports don't understand what sports mean to other people. Mm-hmm. So what does sport mean to you? And what do you think? Do you think sports builds someone's character, or what does it mean to someone?
Yeah.
Is it life-changing for them, or
100%?
Like, you can elaborate on anything.
100%. I think, for me, sports is, like, even though I don't play sports today, I think sports is one of those things for me, is like a way of life. All the things I mentioned earlier, what you can learn in sports is super critical, but man, like, for me, there's nothing like sports that can get you so emotional about maybe a thing you're not directly involved in. And although I say that, like, we are involved in it in some way. We're a part of something bigger than ourselves. we're part of a team that we can watch and represent and feel like it's attached to us based on where we're from, the people that we know, our family members who we grew up with. So, I think it is an important aspect of my life and many other people's lives. And for some people out there, it's really around, providing for their families. You hear the stories of the kids out there that, maybe, hey, this is a way to stay off the streets. This is a way to get my mind on the right things. And ultimately,
a lot of athletes go through that where, they grew up in this bad neighborhood or bad situations or, and their motivation is sport. Like they become these athletes and now are a different person and have changed their lives and their family's life into better, which is great stories to hear from and testimonies.
Exactly. I agree. Yeah. So, at the end of the day, I think, all kids should have that exposure and whether it's a fun pastime or a way of life for you or to, get your family in a better spot, you should have that access.
For sure. I think for me also, like the building character means a lot just because growing up, I always wanted to play sports, but I never had that opportunity, unfortunately. But, nothing against my parents. We had, a really bad struggle at the time. And so I'm just so grateful and thankful that, I've grown up to be so passionate about sports and young kids to, make these dreams happen for them. But for me, since I think that sports teaches an individual, communication and teamwork and competition as like growing up, I didn't have that, right? So I was such an introvert and I feel like I still am. But now that we do our pickle nights or our pickle day Friday nights, I think that it's helped me grow as an individual to be more out there and more outgoing and, being able to build new relationships with people in pickleball. So
I was going to say, for the record, pickleball. She said pickle nights. Yeah. I was like, I wonder if people know what pickle nights are, but yeah.
Sorry,
pickleball.
I meant to say pickleball on Friday nights. There you go.
Yeah.
So I think it's helped me grow as a person, to just be more of an extrovert than what I was when I was younger, which was an introvert because, I didn't have that teammate or teamwork scenario, I guess you could say.
I get you.
So yeah, I really do feel like sports can build an individual's character. So my question leads to, I just had a brain fart, y'all.
Hey, it happens. It's like sports. You can go down so many rabbit holes in sports. You can go any different direction. But at the end of the day, like it's about getting involved. It's, making sure everyone out there has an opportunity to get involved in sports. And whether it's barriers to entry of, your family or financials, that should never be the case.
And I was going to say, since we talked about the good things about sports, obviously there's a lot of challenges and struggles that people face. What do you think are some of those struggles that, anyone face? Young kids, athletes, whomever.
I think a lot of it is financials. For example, golf. You look at golf. I mean, that sport itself is a very expensive sport. Golf clubs every couple years, even less than that, to get kids involved in golf. The golf balls, the tees, the lessons. Very expensive sport, but it's such a beautiful sport. So I wish everyone would be able to have the opportunity to play that. But a lot of times it's not the case. So I'd say financial is a big thing. And then also parents just not thinking that sports are a big critical part of someone's life. I think they are. Parents ultimately have the choice to say, hey, my kid can do that or not. But I would highly encourage it for those parents out there.
That's a great example of talking about parents. We just had past week and we were up in Austin having a brunch, and there was a father that was kind of loud, yelling at his daughter that she was terrible at tennis practice. And, it kind of traumatizes a kid because it's like if, your parents go to a game, all you're thinking is about, I need to be good enough because if not, I'm going to go home and I'm going to get yelled at, And so I think that those are big challenges that kids face, and that's why they maybe don't want to do sports anymore because they just don't want parents, coming at them in any type of way. It's just traumatizing for sure. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think the parents can absolutely ruin the experience for kids. And you have those parents out there that are like, hey, I want the kid to be better than I was. I want them to be more successful, or I demand that they are. And I think that's just the wrong approach about it. Ultimately, the kids will make their decisions of how important this is for them, how valuable are sports to them. Do I really want to play sports? And no one has to play sports forever. It doesn't have to be a requirement, but just the fact that they got out there and they gave it their best and they learned something out of it is, I feel like that's all that's required. So, yeah, at the end of the day, if we can just be empowering our kids to go be in sports and give it their best, that's all we can really ask for.
For sure. Yeah. There's so much we can talk about in this sports podcast. There's so many topics like you can get into, but we can't be here all day, and you got to go to the next episode. But just 2 last questions before we end this episode. So is there someone that you look up to, an athlete or someone in your family that you look up to that in the sports area?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there's so many athletes out there. I'd say one that really inspires me and wasn't really huge in my upcoming until like the past 5 to 10 years is Tiger Woods. I think his story is incredible of, starting off as a young black man in America in a sport that's predominantly white and,
golf.
Right, in golf, Tiger Woods. And I'm sure everyone's out there heard of Tiger Woods. If you haven't, you do now. But yeah, his story is just so incredible. The amount of devotion and dedication he has to the game, to be on the top of the mountain and then be at the bottom of the mountain through injuries and then ultimately at the top again in the Masters. Just goes to show you that anything's possible if you continue and keep your persistence. So he's a true inspiration.
And to now see that his son is doing what his dad is passionate about, and seeing that his son is so passionate about it means that he was able to give his son that opportunity to do also what he did, what Tiger did, which is great to see kids do and achieve in life, because you become these big professionals, and parents don't even know that one day they can be that big. So it's awesome to hear those stories and testimonies from a lot of people. And lastly, what is one advice that you would give these young kids that are wanting to play sports but cannot, or even families that want to try to help their kids and putting them into these sports but can't because of different reasons?
Yeah, gosh, I'd give advice to kids out there. Hey, if sports are something that you're contemplating, if you're debating whether going in or not, absolutely do it if you can. If you feel like you're not big enough, you're not strong enough, give it a shot. You never know, right? Like, you never know. Really, it's at the end of the day betting on yourself. The more you bet on yourself, the more that you build your confidence. And hey, if things don't work out, go at it again. You learn things about it, and if it doesn't work out for you, that's fine too. At the end of the day, you gave it your best shot. You can never look back and say, oh, what if? And so I feel like you just learn so many different skills out of it. It's definitely worth a shot. And for the parents out there, I encourage you to support your kids through the process of sports, to get out there and play ball with them, to play catch and kick the soccer ball around and stuff. When it comes to financial constraints, I think a good idea is exactly what we're doing here, and what you're doing, Genesis, in this podcast, is trying to get the message out, trying to get the word out of like, hey, what do sports mean to people? And I don't think everyone has the opportunity to share their story. So by hearing one story at a time, I think that we can go and, build the value of what sports are to us and how they can impact kids and furthermore after that. So
for sure. And I think one advice I would give for sure to kids and families, parents especially, is that it never hurts to ask about anything that, you can possibly do. That there's so many people out there that can help you. Even these leaders and sponsorship people that are able to help you and your kid out. You just got to ask the questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions like, hey, is there something else that I can do to make my kid be part of it? But yeah, thank you for joining me, Jared, on this podcast on my first episode. And if you want to, see more, you got to come back to my second episode. And yeah, y'all have a great evening, and we are out.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me. Take care.
Bye.